Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom. Welcome to my podcast, where we will go deep into the lair of the purple worm instead of down into the rabbit hole, where we'll voyage into the astral realm of my mind and explore the verse of nerd culture. This is Phantom Thoughts. Today I want to talk a little more about Rule Zero in RPGs. I talked about this briefly in one of the probably one of my last OctoSR episodes, mainly talking about kind of its origins and how it related to the evolution of miniature war games into RPGs. But what I want to talk about today is sort of what some people see as the downside of Rule Zero, because there are a lot of people who will kind of bow up a little, for lack of a better term, when they hear the term Rule Zero, because it can be interpreted as, it can be interpreted in several ways. It's usually, I think it's meant to be, make the game your own. It's to tell the game master that they have, agency beyond just, you have to follow the rules. It's not like a board game where it's one set of rules and everybody follows the rules and the rules are the same. RPGs are more flexible, particularly the OSR old school variations of RPGs that emphasize less strict interpretation of the rules and more having a solid foundation of rules, but having rulings when specific issues or conflicts or decisions have to be made that aren't exactly covered by the rules. But this can be seen from another perspective as, and I think it has been for a lot of people who are kind of detractors of Rule Zero, as the game master can do whatever they want. And, it makes it seem like this is sort of a more dictatorial type of rule. And I often hear the term GM fiat or DM fiat being used as a stand-in for Rule Zero, or roughly equivalent. And to be honest, that term kind of makes my hackles go up too, because I hear the word fiat and I do think of Mussolini in fascist Italy. He made the trains run in time and whatever, but basically just did whatever he wanted. And that's really, I don't think that's really what Rule Zero is meant to be. It's meant to be empowerment of the game master without making the game master just this overbearing presence in the campaign that does what they want, and the players have to dance to their tune. Because, and just the idea of the GM fiat and interpreting the Rule Zero that way, to me, brings up the idea that some people say where, the game master is really just a frustrated fantasy novelist. And so, and it brings in the topic of railroading that I've covered a few episodes ago as well, where the GM has established that this is what's going to happen in this campaign, and I'm not going to let the players' decisions derail what I've decided is going to happen. I don't think that's what Rule Zero is all about. When people talk about using Rule Zero and having Rule Zero being a part of an old school style campaign, it's not meant to be that way. It's not meant to be. It's the GM's world, and to heck with what y'all want. It's just a way to give GMs, particularly new GMs, the understanding that yes, there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, but you also have a lot of agency to make it happen, so that when you come to the table, everybody's having fun. You're having fun, the players are having fun, and you're working together to have a brilliant experience. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, and so it was something I didn't discuss in my previous episode on Rule Zero, but it was just something that I did want to touch on. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is going back to the Anchorpocalypse. The Anchor app having the favorites tab be removed, and not having the ability to leave messages from the app on your phone as you're out and about listening to podcasts, where you would have to send a message another way. You'd have to use SpeakPipe. You'd have to go on the web, which sometimes that can be problematic depending on the connection you have at the time. Just making a voice message and emailing it or sending it on Discord or some other way. I was listening to a podcast recently that is podcast over the iHeartRadio network, and they mentioned a talkback feature, which was you could leave a message using the iHeart app on your phone. And so I looked into that a little more. It's something that it looks like they've rolled it out on a limited basis to certain podcasts on their network in, I think it was around May of this year. And from what I can tell is there's not a way to do talkback on the web that I've seen. It is purely app-based, and I don't know if there's any way to access that from the app for the podcasters or not, because it doesn't look like it's something that is available to every podcast, because my podcast is on there. It's one of the many podcasting sites that I linked to when I started my podcast. But there doesn't appear to be any kind of option for me to utilize that yet. But that is something that it looks like iHeartRadio is trying to develop. The downside to this is that the iHeartRadio network or app is only available in certain parts of the world. US, Canada, I think Australia, New Zealand, and then I think there might have been a few places in Europe. No, I take that back. I don't think there were any places in Europe, because I think I remember thinking, well, the Anchorites in England can't utilize this. So it's not something that looks like right now it would be a straight up replacement to, hey, we had the Anchor app and we could leave messages from our phone and we could make the podcast in our phone using those messages. I don't know what it looks like from the podcast creator side, but it is something to keep an eye on for the future. And that's going to do it for another episode of Phantom Thoughts. If you have any feedback you'd like to leave, you can contact me by leaving a voice message at anchor.fm/the-pink-phantom, or you can send an email to thepinkphantom1@gmail.com, or you can contact me on Twitter @thepinkphantom. The music in this episode was Strength of the Titans and Late Night Radio by Kevin MacLeod at Anchorpocalypse.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license from creativecommons.org/licenses/by/4.0.